Hi, I'm Kathleen Duffenbaugh, and I'm giving my speech for English 120 on Burkitts lymphoma. Burkitts lymphoma is an uncommon type of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It is a B-cell cancer that is born out of the B cells that are grown in our bone marrow. It comes from our lymph system or our immune system. Part of the immune system and the organs that make it up are the spleen, the thymus, the lymph nodes, and the bone marrow. But certainly, Burkitts lymphoma is a very rare form of childhood cancer. My son Adam was diagnosed with Burkitts lymphoma on Christmas Day, 1987. He was 3.5 years old. In the handout that I provided, there is a picture of Adam, and it shows you what he looked like upon his diagnosis. Adam was a very energetic child. He was totally normal. His growth rate was normal. He was not abnormally sick as a child. There were no signs or symptoms leading up to his illness or his subsequent diagnosis. Adam became very ill about 6 days before his diagnosis with flu-like symptoms: vomiting, diarrhea, lack of appetite, fever. Those are the things that were going on with him. He underwent surgery, biopsies. He had a catheter implanted, a Broviac catheter implanted into his chest to receive chemotherapy. He went through radiation, spinal taps, intrathecal chemotherapy where they inserted the chemotherapy into his spine. He went through a lot in 10 months' time for a 3.5-year-old little boy. He was very stoic, as many of these children are. They really teach us a lot, and Adam taught me a great deal about life in general and how to deal with the bumps in the road, I think is how I would phrase it. And this is his story. I want to inform you a little bit about Burkitts lymphoma and give you an idea of how it transpires and what we know about it, how we can treat it, and what is still left to be done in the avenue of research so that we can help these children who are diagnosed with it. Burkitts lymphoma is, again, a B-cell type lymphoma. There are two distinct types of Burkitts lymphoma that we commonly see, and then there's a third type that is only seen within the HIV or AIDS community, or people who are taking immunosuppressant drugs because of organ transplant. So we're going to only talk really about the first two, the endemic Burkitts lymphoma, which is found in African children. This was first seen in Africa, and it affected children's mandible or their jaw. The tumor would be swelled out like this on their jaw, and these children do quite well when diagnosed and treated with chemotherapy. The success rate is much, much greater for their type of Burkitts lymphoma. Burkitts was named after the doctor that first identified this tumor in Africa, Dr. Burkitt, and the second type of Burkitts lymphoma is found in all the countries of the world other than Africa. It is the sporadic Burkitts lymphoma. It is linked to the Epstein-Barr virus. In fact, they both are. The Epstein-Barr virus is a very common virus. It is what is thought to cause mononucleosis. So if you've all heard of the kissing disease, or mono, Epstein-Barr is the virus that causes this. And they are looking into links of that particular virus having something to do with Burkitts. It is a highly aggressive tumor. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This tumor grows extremely rapidly. It can double in size in 24 hours, which is really hard to imagine, and you really don't know what that means until you see it. When Adam was diagnosed, one morning, I got him up to get him dressed on Christmas morning, and his stomach was fine. And that evening, after Christmas presents were opened, he proceeded to get undressed to try on some new pajamas, and his stomach was so distended, he looked like a starving child from Ethiopia. It was very scary. It is noted that the abdomen is usually affected in sporadic Burkitts lymphoma 90% of the time. So the lymph nodes within the abdomen can be affected, organs such as the large intestine, the bowel, the liver. These organs are most commonly involved with Burkitts lymphoma, and my son's was extensively. He had tumor the size of a football that had interwrapped around his colon, as well as infiltrated his liver. He was stage 3 when he was diagnosed because of the liver involvement, and the fact that they were unable to remove any tumor or dissect any tumor out of him. Because of it being so intertwined within the colon, the risk of nicking the colon to remove it was too great, which would have really put him at risk for death. So they decided to just go the chemotherapy route. Burkitts lymphoma, being as aggressive as it is also very responsive to chemotherapy. And when given chemotherapy, the tumor shrinks just as quickly as it grew. So a child can go into remission rather quickly if the treatment, if the tumor responds to the treatment accordingly. Night sweats, swelling in the neck, armpits, in the abdomen area from the lymph nodes, those are other signs and symptoms. Vomiting, weight loss, loss of appetite, gastrointestinal bleeding can sometimes be associated with a Burkitts diagnosis. Excuse me. The tumor mass grows so rapidly and becomes so large that it can press on other organs and create all kinds of problems, including airway obstructions, heart arrhythmias. The inferior vena cava can be obstructed. There are just so many things that can go wrong. Increased intracranial pressure in the head can cause vision problems and headaches and vomiting and just a lot of different things. Once the diagnosis has been confirmed by biopsy, PET scan, CT scan, blood work, these are all tests that they run to confirm diagnosis, and they need to decide whether or not tumor can be removed. If tumor cannot be removed, then of course they start chemotherapy rapidly and right away. They also may do lumbar punctures and do intrathecal chemotherapy, which they did on Adam, where they put the chemotherapy drugs directly into his spinal column. Since his central nervous system became compromised late in his treatment, about a month and a half before he passed away, they became much more aggressive in his treatment, and he was getting radiation on his head as well as the intrathecal chemotherapy on top of everything else that he was receiving. Adam became very sick at this time. It was very hard for his blood counts to bounce back after treatment. There was one point where they totally thought they had killed his bone marrow because of the treatment and that he had no immune system at that time. We were very lucky that it did come back, and he was able to regenerate his own immunities again. But it was very, very scary there for a while. Adam's stage of tumor was a stage 3 because of the involvement of his liver. They do stage cancer in stage 1 through 4, depending on what's involved, how much tumor, and where in the body it's located, and what organs are involved. After the staging is done, they grade a tumor based on low or high grade. Low grade meaning that it's not as aggressive, maybe slow growing. High grade tumors are aggressive and very fast growing. Based on what I've told you, Burkitts lymphoma is a high grade type of cancer. It's very fast growing. A person, as I stated, can appear very fine and well, and 4 to 6 weeks later can be lying on their deathbed critically ill. It needs to be treated immediately upon diagnosis. There are no waiting games here. You really have to jump on it, and you don't really get a time to even accept the diagnosis. You just get things thrown at you so fast that you have to do this. We went through it all the chemotherapy, the radiation, everything, and even in doing that in 10 months' time, Adam's outcome was not the best. He passed away on October 16th, 1988. 10 months after starting treatment. He gave it a real go for its money. He fought really hard. We hit it with everything that we knew we could. But the prognosis is this. If the tumor is caught early enough and has not spread to any other organs or any other spots or locations within the body, the recovery can be as high as 90% recovery rate. However, if it's not caught early and there is involvement in other parts of the body, that percentage drops to 30%. And it is, it's just the way it is. In 23 years since Adam passed away, they've not really come that far with why kids get Burkitts lymphoma, although they are looking at some genetics and some genes and proteins that are involved. They still are looking at Epstein-Barr virus, but they really don't know, and they don't understand why it affects boys more than it affects girls. We do know that more research needs to be done, more money needs to be put into this, and we also know that more people need to sign up for organ donation, such as bone marrow transplant. If you are approached by anyone to be an organ donor or to donate your bone marrow, get on the national registry. There are children out there that need you, that are in dire need of a transplant, and they could use our help. I will say that my son fought a valiant fight. He was given a trip by Make-A-Wish 4.5 weeks before he passed away, and got to go to Disney World, and it was a dream come true for my family and for him. He was well enough that he did enjoy the trip and wasn't too sick. It's something that our family will always cherish and remember. And I do hope that you have learned something about Burkitts lymphoma today that you didn't know before, and that you found the information valuable. Thank you.